learners. I am Dr. A.M. Surakat, and with me in this course is Dr. Mrs. O.A. Anifuoshi. We are both from the Department of Philosophy, Olabisi Onabanjo University. Both of us are going to take you GNS 104, which is known as Philosophy and Logical Thinking. The course is domiciled in philosophy. Now, let me first of all give you the general introduction or what is expected of learners in this course. Philosophy and Critical Thinking is a 2-unit course for students, and it is a compulsory course that must be taken and passed. It is compulsory for any student aspiring to have a degree from Olabisi Onabanjo University, and such a student must pass it, or such learner must pass it. Now, we have recommended study time for the course. At least 2 hours is recommended in studying the content of each unit, and the course is divided into 5 sections. Objective of the course is to introduce learners to logical thinking and to help learners understand the importance of logic in human life. The aim of the course is to introduce to learners basic concepts of philosophy and logical thinking, and the course objective is for learners to understand the objective of each section before proceeding to next section. Major components of the course are course guide, printed lecture materials, textbooks, interactive DVD, electronic lecture material, and tutor-marked assignments. The final examination for GNS 104 will not last for more than 1 hour. So invariably, it is just a 1-hour course, 1-hour examination. And it carries 60% of the total grade, while test assignments will carry 40%. Now, let me take you through the overview of section 1. The overview of section 1. That is the general introduction to section 1 of philosophy and critical thinking. Now, the focus of this section is to give a holistic overview of philosophy, and at the end of this section, learners should be able to 1. Define philosophy, 2. Understand the various conceptions of philosophy, 3. Know the importance of the various branches of philosophy, and 4. Explain the usefulness of philosophy. Then, what is philosophy? The word philosophy comes from 2 Greek words, philin and philo, which means to love, and sophia, which means knowledge or wisdom. That means it comes from 2 Greek words, philin or philo. It's either philin or philo. Philin or philo means love of, and sophia means knowledge or wisdom. So the etymological meaning is love of wisdom or love of knowledge. Because knowledge can be discovered in any field. That's why the great who invented philosophy thought of any person who sought knowledge in any area of life as a philosopher. Thus, philosophy was encompassed nearly everything that Kant has knowledge. There is no such thing as the exact or univocal definition of philosophy, no such thing as the exact or univocal definition of philosophy. What we have seen from history is that each philosopher defines philosophy from his or her perspective, or based on what he or she perceives as the central problems, or what we may call the subject matter of philosophy. Since there are many problems or issues that philosophy grapples with, there are many definitions of philosophy. This is because philosophy is very wide in scope. Now, let's look briefly at the conceptions of philosophy. We have various conceptions of philosophy. That is how people conceive philosophy, what people think about philosophy, people's idea or knowledge about philosophy, what people look at philosophy to take philosophy to be. what people take philosophy to be. Now we have what we call the underliberal conception of philosophy. We call it underliberal conception of philosophy. This is also known as popular conception of philosophy. This conception of philosophy is often used to characterize a person's or group of persons' attitude to life. It also means a person's expressed or observed view, which may be the sum of his assumptions, beliefs, attitudes, and prejudices, which are partly inherited or acquired in the process of living. In this sense, everybody is a philosopher, insofar as everybody has a philosophy of life. That is why we see in the street today, we often hear people saying, my philosophy is this, my philosophy is that, and so on. So it means the sum of a person's belief or the main principle that controls and guides a person's life. Then there is what we call the master scientist conception of philosophy. This conception emanated as a result of philosophical doctrine that sees knowledge as exclusively depending on sense experience, meaning that what cannot be observed is not subject to objective verification and therefore did not constitute knowledge. What you cannot observe does not constitute knowledge. That is what this conception of philosophy is talking about. So the doctrine is known as scienticism. That means we can also call it scienticism. Scienticism, science coming from science, scienticism. That is, what cannot be objectively verified does not constitute knowledge. So this is the theory of the fact that this is what means. I mean, this is what we are saying, that in some aspect of life, some people have categorized philosophy as a discipline that has no usefulness to life. And that is why the logical positivists or whoever, the scientists are saying that anything that cannot be objectively verified does not constitute knowledge, so it does not really amount to knowledge. So the doctrine is known as scienticism. It is a conception that repudiates knowledge not based on scientific method of inquiry. The fact is that reality goes beyond what is experimental and observable. Empirical disciplines are incompetent to explain the ultimate purpose of our existence or of the universe because of their empirical constraints. Then we have what we call clarification of concepts. That's another conception of philosophy. Philosophy is reduced to clarification of the meaning of words and concepts. To the advocates of this conception, the function of philosophy is just to clarify the meaning of such words as justice, goodness, beauty, etc. Certainly, this is one function of philosophy and not the main task or the only legitimate function of philosophy. To see it as the only legitimate function of philosophy is to have a narrow conception of the discipline and therefore of knowledge. This is because it will limit what we call knowledge to statements about observable facts. We have knowledge of ethical and teleological principles and other follow-leading theories, and this cannot be proven through this objective means of verification. There is philosophy as a love of wisdom. It's not a conception, that is philosophy as love of wisdom. This connotation of philosophy is derived from the etymological meaning of philosophy as love of wisdom. Wisdom consists in the constant and unwavering disposition to seek the truth. Wisdom is not opposed to knowledge in the sense of amassed information, but one could be wise without having much knowledge, just as one could have a lot of knowledge without being wise. But wisdom is the habit of applying the intellect in a systematic way as a guide and a beacon in one's activities. So a philosopher in this connotation is one who believes in the efficacy of intellectual efforts, is the one who believes in the efficacy of intellectual efforts, and who uses whatever knowledge he or she can command to benefit mankind. Then we have philosophy as search for truth. That's another conception, philosophy as search for truth. Philosophy, and indeed philosophers, have penchant for certain and indubitable knowledge. Knowledge that cannot be doubted. That's what we call indubitable knowledge. Knowledge that can never be doubted, or knowledge that cannot be faulted. So René Descartes, a mathematician turned philosopher, declared his interest in philosophy when he was looking for a certain and distinct knowledge that can be certain and distinct as mathematical truth. You know, when you say 2 plus 2 in mathematics is 4, you cannot doubt it, you can't fault it. So Descartes established a foundation for truth when he doubted all existing things around him, including himself. But he came to the conclusion that one thing he cannot doubt is the fact that he is existing. Philosophers' penchant for the truth is best seen in the description of the philosophers as given by the Greek thinker and mathematician Pythagoras, when he likened philosophers to spectators at the ancient games, where we have 3 classes of people: competitors, spectators, and goods sellers. The philosopher's superiority over these other classes of people lies in his constant disposition to spurn fame and profit and go for truth. Now, having looked at that, now let us examine briefly the branches of philosophy. We have 4 major branches of philosophy, namely logic, epistemology, metaphysics, and ethics. Now, logic comes from the word logos. Logic comes from the Greek word logos, meaning reasoned discourse. So it is a principle and method used in distinguishing correct reasoning from incorrect reasoning. Philosophers is most concerned with arguments. So now when we're talking about logic, the engine of logic is argument. Now 2, we have epistemology. This is derived from 2 Greek words, epistem, which means knowledge, and logos, which means science of study, discourse or reasoning. That is epistemology, theory of knowledge. You can call it theory of knowledge. And it tries to examine the nature, the scope, and the limit of knowledge. So what do we know? How do we know what we claim to know? Is knowledge infallible? These are part of the questions that we ask in epistemology. The metaphysics. This is derived from the Greek word ta-meta-physical, which means after the physics. So, or things after the things of the physical. So when I say metaphysics, meta means beyond, and while physics means physical. So beyond physical, what is not visible to us. So it is the branch of philosophy that studies reality in its most comprehensive scope and fundamental principle. So that is metaphysics. So it is derived from the word ta, from the Greek word ta-meta-physical. So meta means beyond, while physical means, so it is after physics. And it asks such questions as, what is real? In most cases, we say appearance and reality. You see some people at times look at their appearance, you try to use their appearance to judge their reality, whereas appearance does not depict their real nature. So in so many cases like that, we take appearance for reality, and these are part of the questions that metaphysics ask. What is real? Is my existence real as a human being? Is God existing? If God is existing, where is He existing? Such and other types of questions are the questions in metaphysics. Now, let us look at ethics. Ethics derived from the Greek word ethos, meaning custom or character. It deals with morality of human conduct in the society. It deals with the conduct of human being. What is good and what is bad. How do we know that an action is good, or how do we determine that that action is bad? So ethics deal with the good action and the bad action of human life. So now we have 3 types of ethics. We have what we call normative ethics. So normative ethics prescribe what ought to be, both for human and society. What ought as against what is. In most cases, we do what is and not what ought. So that is what the norm, what's supposed to be. That is the normative ethics. So descriptive ethics examine the moral view held by a human being and the society and confirm whether they are universal or not. And we have meta-ethics, which deals with the logic and language of ethical terms. That one deals with the logic and the language of ethical terms. Now, we have what we call allied branches of philosophy. And that's where we have philosophy of religion, philosophy of education, philosophy of law, philosophy of mathematics, philosophy of engineering, philosophy of technology, on and on like that. What is the importance of philosophy to all this one? Now, having said that, philosophy initially housed every discipline we have. All the disciplines we have today are born out of philosophy. So philosophy still had the responsibility of trying to look into other disciplines, because philosophy is the mother of all other disciplines. So all this philosophy of religion, education, law, and other things are born out of philosophy. Our attempts to apply philosophy to those courses is a way of applying philosophy to examine how far those courses are faring. Now, the last one, let us look at the usefulness of philosophy. The usefulness of philosophy. Now, philosophy, as we know, is an abstract discipline, as people have called it, and people think it does not have any practical importance to human society. But no, it is just because people's mind is based on the fact that philosophy does not contribute any meaningful development to society. But no, let us look briefly at some, but this is not all, the usefulness of philosophy. Now, philosophy is both mentally and practically relevant to humankind. One of the usefulness of philosophy is that it helps to foster or develop the habit of reflection, and thus further helps us to enlarge the area of our awareness to become more alive, more discerning, more critical, and to be more enlightened. 2. Philosophy provides us with the parameters for designing and for judging issues and for articulating problems intelligently and critically. 3. Philosophy in the intellectual realm trains one to think clearly, critically, and independently. And at the moral level, philosophy helps to provide insight in distinguishing among values and to identify for oneself what is best and most relevant. Philosophy enables one to distinguish which human behavior is good, morally acceptable, and praiseworthy. Philosophy in the business and professional levels provides the intellectual background necessary to success. It challenges one to come up with one's own reflective way of solving problems that do not have ready-made answers. Philosophy is the best way to foster the habit of reflection, and this further helps to enlarge the area of our awareness so as to become more alive, more discerning, more critical, and more enlightened. Now, that is part of the usage of philosophy, but not all. Then the summary of section 1. In section 1, we have briefly defined what philosophy is. I've said that it doesn't have any univocal definition, but we can give or attempt a definition of philosophy given by Omorigwe as a rational search for answers to the questions that arise from the human mind when we reflect on human existence. That question is, but then, Bodwin has said that philosophy is an activity, it's what we do. It is an activity. So you can usually look at it from that angle. But when you read your material, you understand more about what we mean by philosophy. Now, we have quickly looked at the various conceptions of philosophy. We have the underliberal conception, we have the master scientist conception, and we have the philosophy as a clarification of concept. Philosophy as the clarification of concept. Then we have philosophy as love of wisdom, and we have philosophy as a search for truth. Then we have briefly looked at branches of philosophy, which is logic, ethics, metaphysics, and epistemology, and other allied branches of philosophy as discussed. Then we have looked at the usefulness of philosophy as a whole. Thank you for listening.